Now you don't have to watch it. I watched it so you don't have to. Welcome back, Chuckle Crimers. We are reacting to the Kouri Richins sentencing situation. There's a lot here. I specifically wanted to go into her son's statements. They were not in court, fortunately. Therapist counselors are the ones who read their words. And then we got to hear Kouri's words, which I'll give you some highlights so you don't have to see the whole thing. Now you don't have to watch it. I watched it so you don't have to. She was as self-centered, narcissistic as you can imagine, and used it to platform herself for 38 solid minutes. And then we will end with Judge Mrazek being the awesome human that he is with his sentence. As you probably heard, she was given life without parole on the big M of her husband, Eric, on his birthday, or what would have been his, I believe, his 44th birthday. So let's go into first the statements from her sons, read by therapists. So I'm going to be using their initials, just as a therapist did, and not use their names.
This is from WR. I woke up to sirens, and there were a lot of people at my house, and I was definitely scared. I felt confused. I was in a bedroom with my brothers, and I didn't know what was happening. At first, I was really scared because I didn't know what was happening, and I had no control, and I felt helpless. I felt really overwhelmed. After my dad died, Kouri would put us in the basement while she was with the neighbor.
Say what now? Kouri would put them in a basement while she was off with the neighbor? Okay, I will say, just going into the children's statements, children can exaggerate, children can make things up. I understand that, and I've experienced this as raising my own children. I know kids can exaggerate, conflate, make things up. Even so, the kinds of things that come through in these statements are pretty dang damning. Wait till you get to some of them, but oh man.
I felt scared because I thought something really bad was happening again. She would take me to places that smelled really bad.
I'm guessing vaping, smoking, weed, something along those lines. Or maybe they're just like dirty places, who knows?
Everything she did made me feel uncomfortable. When someone talks about Kouri, it makes me feel hateful and ashamed. She took away my dad. It's made me have a hard time trusting people. I was scared that Kouri's family would come to my school and take me. I had to go to counseling with DCFS in Heber, and I did not like it.
Can you imagine living in fear that your mom's family is going to come take you away from the only family you currently have, which was Katie and Clint, Eric's sister and her husband, are now taking care of them. The terror. I'm realizing that my mom took away my dad, just like you said. My mom took away my dad, and what if they tried to take me away?
DCFS made me talk to Kouri, and I couldn't do things that I wanted to do. I felt not important to anyone. I feel a lot better about myself now than I did with Kouri. I can't ever see my dad again. I want her to go to prison forever. If she got out, I would be so scared, really mad, and I wouldn't want to go with her anywhere. I'm worried that she would take me away from Katie and Clint. Once she is gone, I will feel happy, and I will feel safer and relaxed, and trust people more.
I can't even, I just can't. And also, watch Kouri's face throughout this. That's the part that just blows my brain as a parent. If I were listening to words that my children had written, saying these kinds of things about me, it would break me, absolutely destroy me. And instead of looking sad or confused or devastated that my children would believe these things and say these things about me or misunderstand or whatever, she's like, what? She just looks annoyed and pissed off. I suspect her facial expressions were something that the judge used because she shows no sadness that Eric's dead. She didn't have to come forward and say, oh, I'm sorry that I killed him, because she's still, of course, appealing. She can't say that she's guilty because if she's going to appeal, right? But she could still express sorrow over what has happened and the fallout that her children are suffering. And she never really gets there. And the fact that she listens to her son's words and with visible disdain on her face, that says a heck of a lot of what kind of mother she is. Okay, so let's listen to AR.
For AR. You took away my dad for no reason other than greed, and you only cared about yourself and your stupid boyfriends. You were not caring and watching over me and my brothers. I had to be a parent to W. C and I would walk him to the bus stop, feed him, and watch him. You were not concerned about our health. When we got hurt, you didn't even care. When C got run over by a side-by-side, you still made him go to the soccer game that day without taking him to the doctors first.
These are the parts of the stories where I can imagine there could be more to the story than the children understood at the time. If there was something that the kid got run over, but it was clearly just a bruise or something, it was just the shoe. I don't know. I could almost understand maybe there's more to the story, but if the whole picture altogether shows that Kouri was not exactly a loving, kind, compassionate mother. That was the trend.
You would lock C in his room, and I would have to go to the kitchen and bring him food. You shamed us when we didn't want to eat uncooked lasagna you made. We threw it away because we couldn't eat it. Then you made us watch videos of children starving in war areas. You wanted to scare us into eating something that wasn't cooked. You wouldn't let our dog outside, and then the dog would pee inside. You created this problem, then you would smack my dog on the head as hard as you could. You wouldn't let me put my kitten in the garage for safety at night, and we found it eaten by raccoons the next day.
Okay, that one stings. They live in a rural area. They lived in Camas, which is outside of Heber, which is the bigger city, and even Heber is not that big. Heber only in the last few years got a Walmart. And Camas is much smaller than that. There are wild animals. And so the idea that she wouldn't let a kitten stay in the house or the garage overnight. I mean, a kitten. That leads me to, again, she doesn't have much of a conscience. It's all about her. A kitten. And raccoons are brutal. They don't do that.
You wouldn't let us turn on and use the heater lamp for the chickens and bunnies, and they froze to death.
Again, no concern about animals. She could have become a serial killer, in my opinion.
You would always argue with my dad and lock the door. You were not playing the role as a real mother does. You were doing the opposite. Now, my dad can't be my coach anymore, can't be at any of my games. He won't be at my birthdays. He can't teach me how to drive. He won't be at my graduation, and he can't take me camping or fishing. You made me paranoid about sleeping on my dad's side of the bed by saying I might die or get harmed when I was just trying to be close to my dad after you killed him.
Look at her face. Look at her face. What? You think I did what? I totally believe that she would try to freak her child into not sleeping in the room with her anymore when he's just trying to feel close to his dad by sleeping where his dad used to sleep. No, what if you die there too? I can see her just, and not you. Here's the thing. I can see Kouri being so mean. These things just would come out of her mouth maybe, and maybe she doesn't remember saying it. Maybe she doesn't. But the pattern appears to be so awful that these kinds of things would just come out of her mouth. And you can guarantee, though, the person hearing it, her child who was wounded by it, would absolutely remember.
You took away everything from me and my brothers. I don't want you out of jail because I will not feel safe if you are out. You have never said sorry for anything that you have done to me and my brothers. I don't want you to hurt anyone again. I know that you will need to stay in jail to fully take accountability for what you did to me, C, W, and my dad. With you in jail, I will be able to continue to feel safe and live a happy and successful life without fear of you hurting me or anyone I love. Thank you, Your Honor.
Heartbreaking. The fact that these children, they're observant, right? They can tell that she does things to living beings that is cruel. Those things are cruel. And so it's right in line with what she did to their father, which makes sense as to why 2 out of 3 so far, and it will be 3 out of 3, expressed fear or their mother being able to have contact with them. And keep that in mind for when we get to her statement. I'm not going to cover the other victim impact statements. Definitely worth watching, especially Eric's sisters, because we hear some more things. Both of them pled for Eric to please get a divorce, and he said no. And neither sister knew that the other one had. We find that out in the hearing as well, when Amy got up and said, I just learned today that Katie and I have this in common, that I had pled with him to get a divorce. He had told both his sisters that no, I'm afraid she would hurt them, because if we got a divorce, she would fight for equal custody. She would probably get at least some custody, and then she could hurt the boys. I have to stay with her to protect the boys. I mean, how tragic and horrible is that? And now the sisters feel guilty for not somehow protecting him from Kouri. Like, they couldn't have. She would have done this somehow eventually. There's no culpability on their part. They don't need to feel that. We also learned that Amy, during the stress of all of this, with Kouri attacking them and filing the lawsuits on the civil side and all of that with the trust, that Amy had a miscarriage and lost twins. So there's another couple of lives there that Kouri screwed up on and devastated Katie, or Amy, and her husband. The whole thing is just horrifying. I can't even. The more I learn, especially and with Amy, how a day or two or whatever after Eric's death, when she was trying to get into the safe to get the business records and all of that, she called the locksmith to break into it. And then Amy says, no, you can't do that. And by the way, he created a trust. The house doesn't belong to you. Neither does the business. All that whole thing. That she attacked Amy, punched her in the throat. Like 4 people had to pull Kouri off of Amy. She was charged with assault, convicted, or I guess maybe she pled guilty to it. None of that came out in the trial because it's not directly related to did Kouri kill her husband. But the more details we learn about what led up to it, what happened after Eric's death, the more I go, yeah, she did this. The jury got it right, no question. Here's the statement from, I believe, the oldest.
Victim impact statement for CR. My name and age now, my name and age I was at the time of the crime. CR, age 12, now 13. I was 9 when my dad was murdered. What I would like to see happen if the perpetrator is convicted of the crime, I would like to see Kouri get a life sentence. My thoughts regarding an appropriate sentence for the person who is accused of this crime and if they are found guilty. I think Kouri should get a life sentence because what she did is very sick. Because it had no reason to happen and it impacted a bunch of people, including me. These are some reasons why I think she should have a life sentence.
Notice also, her children never call her mom. It's Kouri, the defendant, person accused. It's never mom. She has lost that title in their minds.
The information I feel is important for the judge to be aware of in sentencing. I think the judge should know that my dad was a good person and very thoughtful and kind and helped whoever needed help. He was always taking the extra mile to help people. My physical injuries as a result of this crime are as follows.
Okay, brace yourself. This is one that may or may not be what he thinks it is, but it's eerie and creepy, and understandably he interprets it this way. So I would like to know more, but holy crap.
I was sleeping and then I went to get a drink of water, then went back to bed. And when I woke up shaking and Bailey called the ambulance and they came and I couldn't talk for a while, I think Kouri had something to do with it because she didn't call the ambulance. She called Bailey and Bailey called the ambulance. At the ER, Kouri resisted to have my blood drawn, and kids who usually have this kind of seizure is when they are a few months old to a year old. I learned later that Kouri bought more fentanyl and had it in the house when this happened. I think this is what happened. She did what she did to my dad in the living room.
Like what? We do know she had more fentanyl. There was one more drug deal after Eric's death. The defense tried to make it into, oh, why on earth would she have bought more if he was already dead? I had speculated maybe she wanted to off herself at that point, who knows? But maybe she was trying or debating offing her children because they also had life insurance policies and she clearly doesn't give a crap about them, despite what she says. Again, look at her face. She's not remotely sad over her boys saying these things. So who knows? Maybe she did try to hurt CR. Regardless, he has very legitimate fears.
My experienced emotional injury because of this crime is described as follows. Sad. I feel mad that I have to feel sad. I went from being scared for my life to feeling really good. I was scared for my life because I didn't eat that much. Kouri was always drunk or gone. I was always locked in my
So your case on that one? She's always drunk or gone. What? Kids know. Kids know, especially someone who was, what, 9 at the time?
room. I can't remember, but I am pretty sure the lock was on the outside. Kouri threatened
Okay, he was saying that he was locked in his room a lot.
she would kill my lizard because we didn't want to watch some weird show with her. All of our chickens died because there was no food or water. My rabbit died because we didn't have food or water. The goats almost starved to death because she bought moldy hay and she didn't water them. Nothing ever got fed or watered.
So with children and even with adults, I'm hesitant to believe anything that says never or always, because there's probably exceptions. So no one ever got fed or watered. All the animals, more likely rarely, or she often would skip it, or she wasn't on top of it. It was probably not never, but the point probably still stands that she bought moldy hay. She didn't water the goats well enough. The chickens did die. The bunny died. Now we have even more animals that are dying. Like, are you freaking kidding me, woman?
It didn't feel good to worry about my animals. I felt like I had to take care of my siblings. Ash mostly took care of me though, because I was locked in my room. Ash would bring me food. Kouri would lock me up if I told her she was drunk. This happened pretty much daily. I feel angry that she locked me in my room. I am angry almost all my animals died. I am angry she threatened to kill them. I am angry she killed my dad. I started to feel really good when I moved into a safe place. It was safe because the people around me were safe, Katie and Flint. I felt safe at Jake and Shalina because I wasn't with Kouri anymore.
If anything, that would have broken me right there. The fact that if my children were to say that they felt safe away from me and not in my care, in my arms, no, that would have absolutely broken me. And I'm grateful that, yeah, when my kids, if they would get hurt or scared, they would come to my arms. They would seek me out. I'm not a perfect mother by any stretch, but that's kind of baseline. That if a child is hurt, they want their parent, their mom. Also, I'm curious, does anyone know who Bailey is? That she called Bailey and then Bailey called 911 for CR. I don't know who that is.
Counseling. I feel annoyed that I have to go to counseling and tell the story about what happened 55 million times. I feel better now because I know it's to help me. I would like to not have to go to counseling. I would like to have to not worry about anything after this trial is over. I want the judge to know. I hope Kouri gets convicted to a life sentence. Kouri is always drunk. I want the judge to know my dad was a good person and I miss my dad. I miss my dad, but I do not miss how my life used to be. I don't miss Kouri. I will tell you that. Thank you.
That will haunt me. I do not miss Kouri. I will tell you that. That would break me as a parent, but I don't think she can call herself a parent. And next up is Kouri's statement, or at least a few snippets from her almost 40-minute thing. Instead of addressing the situation, instead of expressing sadness over Eric's death and the fallout and all of this other stuff, this whole thing is a letter directed to her sons. We'll get some of my thoughts as we go along. This is only a few minutes out of a long thing.
That all of my communication has been completely cut off from you since early 2024. And now I will use any opportunity I can to get a message to you.
Okay, now. This is where I'm the child of a linguist comes in. There are something called speech acts. That is, so if you think of the types of sentences, you got a statement, I am a woman, that is a house. You can have questions, is that a house? Is that your house? Commands, go close the door. But then you have a speech act where it looks like one kind of sentence, but is actually functioning as another. So, will you close the door is phrased as a question, but it's actually a kind of a command, right? That kind of thing. Or if someone walks into the kitchen and goes, "Ooh, chocolate cake," they're not making it up. They're not identifying cake like a baby would, or a small child. They're actually kind of asking, "Oh, that's interesting. What's this cake for? Can I have some?" A promise and a threat. They are structured the same way. And the only real difference between a promise and a threat is whether the recipient of the statement wants it or not. So here she is saying, I will never stop trying to reach you. I will use any opportunity I have. She views that as a promise. I can guarantee her boys view it as a threat. And if she understood that, maybe she wouldn't be saying these things. But she is so adamant, I am going to find you. I'm going to find a way to communicate with you, when they are so clear that they want nothing to do with her. They feel safer when she is out of their lives and can't reach them. So Kouri, shut up. Stop threatening to keep trying to reach them, because that's what you're actually doing.
Even if that means sharing it publicly to the world, fully restrained, in my jail clothes, in one of the most horrible situations possible. I regret things I have done right in my life to later find out they were for the wrong people. I have said things I shouldn't.
Keep that one in mind. She regrets things that she did for the wrong people. Here she is admitting that she regrets doing ostensibly good things, but for people who didn't deserve it in her superior view. Really, Kouri?
I've done things I shouldn't have. Sometimes I haven't said what I should or not meant what I did say. There are things I can't change and long overdue apologies that I owe.
She does not give a single apology here. She says, I'm sorry a couple of times, but it's I'm sorry that people feel bad. It's never, I apologize, I'm sorry for X, Y, or Z, because she's not sorry. So here she is, there's apologies that are overdue. And then she doesn't actually give any of them.
There are would-haves and could-haves and should-haves.
How much you want to bet she spells it O-F? Would-have, should-have, instead of could-have, apostrophe V-E, short for have, could have, would have. Just a guess based on her clear inability to write.
We all have them. We have all done them. And you boys will too one day. Nobody is all good or all bad. We just get portrayed that way.
We just get portrayed that way. I don't think many of us are saying that any human is all good or all bad. All I'd say is people like her are pretty dang close to all bad. She probably has some redeeming qualities because she's totally snuggered her counsel. All three of them came up and gave statements. I've never seen that. Ramos' statement, holy crap, was bizarre. It sounded almost like he had been her chaplain in jail. It was bizarre. And he's even throwing out things like, I'm Catholic. What does that have to do with anything? And part of well, his beliefs are that no one is beyond redemption. I'm like, we're not saying she is or is not. That has nothing to do with whether she should be out in society. She is a dangerous person. Her children fear her. She has caused so much damage. She can be redeemed and stay behind bars. So that's irrelevant, sir. It was a bizarre situation. She has snookered everybody. And Wendy Lewis, the blonde, well, actually, they're both blonde, aren't they? The one with the glasses. The one on the right here in the picture. And all three of them stood around her as she read her whole statement, which again was weird. But Wendy Lewis said that in all of her years as an attorney, she's had thousands of clients, many she didn't even like, which I was like, okay, maybe don't say that out loud. And hopefully you'd like most of your clients or something, I don't know. And she said, you forget most of them, which again, I'm thinking that seems weird that you would forget most of your clients, but okay. But then she said that she's never had a client convicted who she thought was actually innocent until now. Excuse me, what? You seriously think that she is innocent? Wow. After everything. It's one thing to fight for your client, and they fought tooth and nail. And I have respect for the entire team for that. They fought very hard for her, which in my mind means she had a fair trial. This won't be overturned. But to hear them say that they actually think she's innocent just tells me that she hoodwinked them. That when she talked to them, she put out that fake charm. That same thing Ted Bundy did, frankly. Guys, come on. Let's see through it.
I never apologize for something you didn't do.
Never apologize for something you didn't do. Gee, what could she possibly be referring to, guys? Of course, she's claiming that she's innocent and, all blah, 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 whatever. But she's not apologizing for anything. She already said that there's apologies that are overdue, and she's not apologizing for those either. So, apparently she doesn't apologize, period.
Never admit to something you didn't do. And never beg for mercy for something you didn't do. There's always going to be someone out there ready to tear you down, misrepresent you, lie about you, tell half-truths, and judge you.
Yeah, again, gee, what is your actual message, Kouri? This is clearly trying to telegraph to everybody, including the judge, I'm innocent. I've been maligned. My reputation has suffered, blah, 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 blah. And none of it's true. People are saying horrible things about me, blah, blah, blah. When your best friends turn on you because they realize that you just screwed them over, like poor Chelsea who lost her home because of Kouri. I'm sorry. This is not people just maligning your character. This is the truth coming out. Her boys are not hearing this, obviously, thankfully. Someday they'll probably Google it and then they'll roll their eyes like we are and get just pissed off because this is what she was trying to manipulate them with. But I'm sure it's not going to work.
They will judge you on decisions you do or don't make, what you did or didn't do, what you did or didn't say. They will take out of context and twist your words. They will judge you on your emotions or the way you grieve.
Gee, why did she pick that one? The way you grieve. That she was celebrating after Eric died, that she was closing on a house the same day, that she was trying to figure out the money situation. And I mean, it wasn't just I'm in survival mode and going to continue on with my life. She was actively doing all kinds of things that were not appropriate for a widow, brand new, and attacking his family like, woman, come on.
You may show too much emotion. You may not show enough. They will tell you you're not grieving correctly. You're too angry. You're too sad. You're holding it together too well or not well enough. Or maybe you're too ambitious.
Kouri Richins is intensely ambitious.
Well, there is that.
They will judge you on your demeanor. If you cry, if you don't cry, if you don't do anything at all. And all of this will get misinterpreted into something that it's not.
I'm one of those people who does hold things together, especially for my kids. There have been situations where if someone had been watching and maybe my child's having a panic attack or something else, that they broke a foot or whatever, that they're struggling and I look very calm and composed. That's because that's my mom mode. I go into that mode and I'm like, I have to stay pulled together for the sake of my kid, for the sake of the situation, and then I will fall apart by myself later. So I understand in general the theory that people can be, if someone were watching me and they go, oh, wow, she's heartless. No, it's actually, I will be falling apart later. You just won't be seeing that. So I get that intellectually, but I don't think that's what we're looking at here with Kouri at all.
Formed by the opinions of who's ever creating it. And then silence is also too often misinterpreted and misjudged. But when people behave that way, it has much more to do with them personally than it does you. Always remember, the only people you owe your loyalty to are those people who never made you question theirs.
This is where she is saying that she has regrets for doing things for people who she found out later didn't deserve it. They were the wrong people. So now she's saying you only do good things for people who deserve it. This is kind of revealing her character here. Like, don't be good to people. Don't be kind to people who don't deserve it. Find out who's on your side and who's loyal to you, and then decide how you'll treat them. Is what it sounds like. Yeah, and then she claims to, I found Jesus and crap. So that's not what Jesus would say. Just saying.
Sometimes people will want you to believe that life is simply black and white. The situations are black and white, but they're not. Life, situations, they're full of color. At the very least, shades of gray.
I bet she thought that was really profound.
Always question the color, even if you're only questioning the gray areas. You will have some people in your life tell you how their love for you is unconditional. But once your most private life has been revealed, you quickly find out just how conditional their love actually was.
You can love someone and still recognize that they've done bad things. I would like to think that if a family member of mine were to be convicted of the big M, that I would believe it. I would grieve the person I thought I knew. That wouldn't mean I stopped loving them, but I wouldn't be denying guilt either. I would hope. But you can still love someone even if they've done a horrible thing and still think they belong behind bars. They don't exclude each other.
And I'm so sorry that I can't bring him back.
Okay, and here's where she starts saying sorry. I'm sorry this, I'm sorry that, but it's not actually an apology for anything she's done. It's just, this is a sad situation and I feel bad, but it's things that are literally out of anybody's control. So why are you even saying it?
For you, for me, for our family. And I'm so sorry you boys are being pulled through the middle of this absolute chaos. Between two families fighting that both love you so very much.
She's the one who started the fight. Physically, literally assaulted Amy. And she's been doing a legal fight, civil stuff over the trust to get the money that Eric set aside for his boys, to protect his boys, knowing that Kouri would blow the money on her own business and debts. So she's the one who's pitted the families against each other, not anyone else.
Trust and assets, our home, none of it matters.
Yeah. So how about you withdraw your civil case? It's still out. She's still suing them. She is still suing the Richins family and the trust. If she is honest about wanting to have both families just love the boys and that none of this money stuff matters, then withdraw your lawsuit. Kouri, withdraw it.
You boys are what matter. Your safety, your health, mentally, emotionally, all of that should be being prioritized.
Yes. So go behind bars. Don't plead for a parole and drop the lawsuit. Simple.
I will and have always prioritized your safety.
And here's where she starts digging her own grave. If the judge at any point had thought maybe we'll give her the possibility of parole after 25 years, no. This is where she starts digging her grave, because she literally is convicted of attempting to kill Eric 2 times and succeeding once when her boys were just feet away.
I am your mother, and that is my job.
Yeah, it's her job to protect her boys. And she literally committed the big M with them very nearby. That's messed up. She did not protect her boys.
For anyone to scare you otherwise is just cruel and heartless. I'm sorry that 8 people from a jury who have never met you or me or our family have the right to determine our future.
I'm sorry that our justice system works. It gets better / worse depending on how you're looking at it.
And they did that in less than 3 hours.
As if that diminishes the rightness of the verdict.
I'm coming home. Not today, not this year, but we're going to make this right. Our justice system will get this right, although this courtroom can't seem to.
You imagine the judge's reaction to that one. Yeah, are you kidding me? You're seriously dissing my court. That was probably like a cherry on top of a heck no, you're not getting parole.
In a perfect world, there might be justice. But in a perfect world, nothing ever goes wrong. If money is paying for it, follow the money.
In a perfect world, there wouldn't be tragedies. Nothing would go wrong. So profound. Put that on a cross stitch. But also, follow the money. I think she's projecting because, follow the money, Kouri. Follow the money. You're the one. We had an entire day of a forensic accountant on the stand showing your money, following your money and your debts. And that helped to convict you. So yes, follow the money, Kouri. Great advice.
I will continue to call you every day, even if my calls are blocked.
Once again, we're in threat territory. She's making a promise that she has now known and learned in this same situation that her sons do not want. They do not want to hear from her. They are afraid of her. And yet she is promising / threatening to never stop trying to reach them. every single day she will continue to call them and try to reach them. That is messed up. That is a threat. Stop it.
Just so you know that I'm here. I've always been here. And I will always be here.
That's a threat. That's not a promise.
My cards, my letters, they will never stop.
Threat. 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 They will never stop.
I will never stop. I love you forever, Mom.
That's the end of her statement finally. I mean, again, I cut it down significantly from what it was. There's so many stupid platitudes too. Keep trying and don't try to be great and don't give up and blah, 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 and love each other, and just platitudes of stuff that she probably got off of like inspirational quote calendar or something. Then we get to the judge. I know what his reasoning, and as he was going into his reasoning, showing how he walked through it all, I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. It sounded like he was going to go give her the possibility of parole. I was like, oh my goodness, dude, are you serious? I could see legally, potentially, why he was going to go that direction, but then he kept going and going further and further, and then holy cow, they kept him to went the other direction. He laid it all out. So he explained both sides, that he did consider both sides. Love that. Now, one other thing that they brought up in the beginning of the hearing that I am confused about on a legal standpoint is the state had requested a restraining order, like I think it was a permanent restraining order, that she could never, ever reach out to her kids again. Judge Mrazek essentially said that while he agrees with the sentiment that the statute in the state is written to protect specifically the victim of the specific crime, and that would be Eric, who of course is no longer with us. And it doesn't extend to other victims as the next step related victims. So the children or the family. And he said that if the statute were written differently, he could interpret it that way and apply it, but until the legislature changes it, he felt that his hands were tied. So I'm kind of confused on that one though, because in Gavin Peterson's case, that poor boy, you can follow my playlist on that one, he died as well, and yet his siblings have a restraining order against their father and stepmother for life so that they can't hurt them back. So I'm trying to figure out why in that case, also in Utah, that judge felt that she could do it, but then Mrazek felt he could not. And I'm wondering if there are other cases that list those children as victims, but in Gavin's case, they weren't. So is it because the parents pled guilty? I don't know. I'm kind of confused because it seems like a parallel type of request, and one was granted, one was not, both in the same state with using the same statute. So explain that one to me, Mr. Law people. I don't get it. Okay, so I'm cutting out the sentencing part of counts 2 through 5. Basically the insurance counts, the forgery count. He addressed all of those first. He kind of went backwards. He gave basically the maximum on those, which I believe was like 5 years, something like that, 5 to life on those. And I believe that they were like 1 to 5, maybe. I'm forgetting. Anyway, essentially, she would at least have a minimum of 5 years in prison just on those counts. And then now he's addressing the big M charge and what that could then add on to it, which would be, he's just about to explain 30 years as she would be minimum behind bars before getting parole, if she were to get parole. And that's because of because of the other charges, and then adding the 25 consecutive on top of that. Now he's addressing the final charge.
Under Utah Code 76-3-207.7, there are only 2 options. An indeterminate prison term of not less than 25 years, and that may be for life, or life in prison without parole. And the law requires that the court consider each option. Under a sentence of 25 to life, and considering the effect of the 4 consecutive sentences, the time that Ms. Richins has spent in custody, and the current practices of the Board of Pardons and Parole, Ms. Richins would likely serve approximately 30 years in the Utah State Prison before receiving her first parole hearing. By that time, she would be 66 years old.
It's just pretty young on the one hand for a murderer to be walking around. She could easily have another 20 plus years in her life.
Under a sentence of life in prison without parole, Ms. Richins would be in prison for the rest of her natural life, unless The board of pardons and parole determines by clear and convincing evidence at some future point that she is permanently incapable of being a threat to the safety of society, at which time the board would have the authority to release her.
It blew my mind that if an inmate gets life without parole, the parole board could potentially overturn that. What?
Under either scenario, Ms. Richins will be incapacitated, meaning structurally prevented from harming anyone outside the Utah State prison system for at least the next 3 decades, and perhaps much longer. But the potential impact on the survivors of the tragedy created by Kouri Richins, most importantly, Eric Richins' 3 sons, is more difficult to predict.
This is the part where I started to wonder if he was going to go for life with parole, or 25 to life with parole.
On one hand, if the court sentences Ms. Richins to life without parole, one or more of those young men may come to resent that the court eliminated any opportunity they might have in the future, decades into the future, to express an opinion as adults with substantial life experience about whether their mother should, for example, be allowed to die with dignity.
Something else I wanted to point out here that was interesting, and the defense argument that they put out, in their statements, some of their witnesses, whatever, some of them that they brought forward were like letters from people who had been in similar situations where, oh, well, my parent was convicted of killing my other parent, and I would have wished that they would have had a chance at parole, but not when I was a child. I was so mad, but I went through forgiveness, and now as an adult, I wish my parent could have had parole, and blah, blah, blah. Or the mother of a killed child writing in and saying that she has forgiven her child's murderer and wishes that he could have parole. Now, that second one in particular, hearing the details of that case, my little antenna went right up, because if you are familiar at all with Utah cases, and a lot of people are, specifically because of what I'm about to talk about, the Cold podcast with Dave Colley from KSL Podcast, it started out with a Susan Powell case, and that was the first main season, and then they decided to do another one, and then he's done a few other seasons, but this particular case got spun into another KSL podcast. So it's not with Cold, but it's called The Letter. It's through KSL Podcast, and it's about this family whose child was murdered and how this mother came to the point of actually forgiving the murderer. I'm quite sure this is the exact same case. And I was like, okay, they've been listening to KSL podcasts, clearly. And this is an extraordinary case. But the other element that kind of bothered me by this argument is that this was a stranger on stranger killing. This was a kid who was very messed up as a teenager, just out looking for trouble, and his victims were essentially victims of opportunity. This was not a domestic situation. This was not a husband killing a wife or a wife killing a husband. It was not anything like that. These were strangers that he shot. And this is apples and oranges completely. Come on, guys. This is a very troubled young man. I believe he was even like high on drugs at the time. This is in no way comparable to what Kouri did. So it bothered me that they brought up that case as an argument as to why Kouri, of all people, should be given the chance of parole. No, thank you.
On the other hand, if the court sentences Ms. Richins to 25 to life, one or more of those young men may spend the next 30 years questioning why the court failed to protect them from the prospect of the person who murdered their father being released from prison at some time in the distant future, perhaps when they have families and children of their own.
Families and children of their own. If these boys are terrified of their mother as children, and for valid reasons, and they grow up and have families of their own with children, and then learn, say they're in their 30s and their mother's in her 60s, and they have their own children, and she gets out on parole, holy crap, if she fulfills her promise threat, they could be victims and targets, and so could their children. I hadn't even considered that until the judge brought it up.
The court's contemplation of how those young men may come to feel about today's decision some 30 years from now comes from a place of genuine concern for them and humility regarding the court's inability to predict the future. Sitting here today, it is simply not possible for anyone, not even those young men, to know how their view of this case may evolve over the next several decades. My hope
Amen.
is that
Amen.
every
Amen.
person affected by Eric Richins' death will, over time, find their way to a state of peace. As for today, the court's duty is to make a decision, a weighty, long-lasting decision based on the best information available today. And the bottom line is this. Kouri Richins was convicted unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt of attempting to murder Eric Richins, her husband, and the father of their 3 children. And then, having failed in her first effort of spending the next 17 days, not changing course, but doubling down, preparing to try again,
Kouri Richins is intensely ambitious.
and ultimately completing the act through the administration of poison.
The term looks like Big attempted. Big M was a huge factor to him in this sentence. That she tried it once and didn't back up, doubled down, tried again, not 3 weeks later,
Kouri Richins is intensely ambitious.
and succeeded.
And for what? Money. All for pecuniary gain.
Yep.
A person if convicted
Here it comes.
of committing that sequence of acts in that way and for that reason, and who causes the absolute tragedy that has befallen Eric Richins' sons and family. A person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free.
Look at her face.
Accordingly, Ms. Richins, based on
She literally rolls her eyes. Oh, good. That's one of the biggest eye rolls I have ever seen. I am too dangerous. She's not sad. She's annoyed.
your conviction on count 1, first-degree felony aggravated murder, the court hereby sentences you to life without parole.
Look at their face.
You have the right.
That's Katie and her husband, Clint, who are deeply involved with the trust and the family. The look of absolute relief on their face is just heartbreaking and priceless at the same time. Let's watch that again.
The court hereby sentences you to life without parole.
That's it. So satisfying to see all that. That was basically the end of it, where he says you have a chance to appeal and within 30 days, and then it was just like the minutia of procedural things to wrap up. But holy cow, it's over. She has been sentenced. She will not see the light of day unless by some weird thing appeals work. But I cannot imagine they will, because again, her team fought very hard. They fought for her, and it was a very fair trial. I cannot imagine anything in this trial that would be grounds for overturning anything. Unlike, say, the Alec Murdaugh trial, which, oh gosh, was it the county clerk or whatever, whoever it was that was involved? It was essentially jury tampering, blah, blah. Should not have happened. So it's important that we do things the right way the first time. In that case, I think Alec Murdaugh is going to be convicted yet again. But we need to make sure we do things correctly and fairly for even the worst of criminals, so that our system can work for the innocent as well. Anyway, that some of my takes then on the Kouri Richins sentencing. Hallelujah, she is behind bars for life. Period. The end. She, in my opinion, she deserves it. And the more I learn, the more I'm like, yeah, she did it. She absolutely freaking did it. I hope her boys can find healing. Let me know what you think. This has been a long, winding road. Let me know what you think in the comments again. Drop some comments of chocolate emojis, if nothing else, to let us know what you're enjoying. And because we got to have some sweet in the middle of all the bitter. And I'll see you next time.